Hello and welcome to tonight's event as part of our faith-based initiative series, Intercession to End Session, Mental Health and the Catholic Church. My name is Archie Green. I am Support and Education Coordinator at NAMI Greater Cleveland, and I am excited to have you all here tonight. Just give me 1 second here. All right, here we go. Just wanted to, before we get started officially, give a brief overview of NAMI, as well as the work that we do here at NAMI Greater Cleveland. NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, founded in 1979, is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for the millions of Americans affected by mental illness. It started with two moms who wanted better for their sons. Our mission here at NAMI is to empower people living with mental illness and their families to achieve a better quality of life by providing support, info, referrals, and advocacy. We know that education plays a critical role in reducing stigma. In addition to presentations like tonight's, we also provide courses taught by NAMI certified teachers and highly trained volunteers who either have lived experience or are family members. These courses give information on diagnosis, treatment services, communication skills, and coping strategies. We offer support groups for family members, peers, and both. We also operate our helpline Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Please visit our website, namigreatercleveland.org, for the most up-to-date calendar of events, which we also have coming up next month, our NAMI Walk on Saturday, September 24th. So we hope to see you all there at our NAMI Walk. NAMI Greater Cleveland is able to offer all of our programming free of charge due to the generosity of our funders. Please be sure to complete the post-presentation evaluation form from SurveyMonkey, which I will provide for you in the chat, as well as post-event email, so we can continue to serve the community and do our part in helping everyone live their healthiest lives. And at this time, what I'd like to do is introduce our keynote speaker. As I stated before, this is a really rich presentation. If you've attended any of our faith-based initiative programs in the past, you know that they are rich in nature. We all learn something new, even if we are affiliated with the religion that is on the stage at this event. It has been a true joy of mine to help organize these events. And so tonight is no different. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Joan Hinkleman. Ms. Hinkleman has been a social worker for over 25 years, receiving her bachelor's from Cleveland State, her master's in social service administration from Case Western Reserve University. She has a background in public health, research, and behavioral health treatment. In October 2007, Ms. Hinkleman started with Catholic Charities. Over the last 15 years, has had several positions within the agency. Mrs. Hinkleman started as a therapist and then became the clinical supervisor for the community-based family services program, the director of CVFS, associate executive director of community services, and now is the senior director of family services. She is also a wife, mother of two, and grandmother of two. When not at work or with her family, you can find her fishing. At this time, bring Ms. Joan Hinkleman to the stage.
Oh, thank you, Archie. All right, give me a second here. I'm going to share my screen so we can get the presentation going. There we go. Hold on, let me go back. Because I need to start from the beginning. Okay. There we go. All right, everybody. Again, thank you for the kind introduction. And I'm here to talk to you tonight about intercession to in-session mental health in the Catholic Church. So the National Catholic Partnership on Disability sets forth the following framework as a guide to the church's ministry for and with people with mental illness. Human life is sacred. Every person is created in God's image. A person's dignity and worth cannot be diminished by any condition, including mental illness. Pope John Paul II says, "Whoever suffers from mental illness always bears God's image and likeness in themselves, as does every human being. In addition, they always have the inalienable right not only to be considered as an image of God and therefore as a person, but also to be treated as such." So Catholic social teaching, which is a major theme, is human dignity. And human dignity can be protected in a healthy community, can be achieved only if human rights are protected and responsibilities are met. Every person has a fundamental right to those things required for human decency. Those living with a mental illness should never bear these burdens alone, nor should their families who struggle heroically to assist their loved ones. We Christians must encounter them, accompany them, comfort them, and help bear their burdens in solidarity with them, offering our understanding, prayers, and tangible and ongoing assistance. So I'm going to talk a little bit about stigma. So there is a stigma attached to mental illness, as we all well know, that forces many to hide the severity of their symptoms, or many stop coming to church at all due to the stigma. It's the greatest single barrier to people getting effective treatment. And leaders of parishes, dioceses, or other Catholic organizations can fight stigma by learning the signs of mental illness and reaching out to those living with the illness. Now, I do want to say, and I'm sure this will come up, that the Catholic Church goes back a long way, over 2,000 years. And like society, the views and treatments with those with mental illness have evolved as well. Historically, mental illness was viewed as a moral failing for which prayer was the only treatment. Now some churches have active outreach programs for people with mental health conditions. And above all, finding a faith community where you feel welcome and loved is paramount. Doesn't have to be the Catholic Church. It can be any faith-based organization. And so that leads into this. Acceptance and socialization in one's faith community is a key to the greater awareness of God's love. Being an active part of the faith community deepens one's spirituality and gives hope and support to people who may at times feel disconnected from the community due to mental illness. If a person feels rejected by their church, they may often feel rejected by God. When a faith community accepts the person for who they are, the faith community reflects God's unconditional love for all of us. So one of the things I also needed to keep in mind, priests, pastors, any clergy are people too, with their own biases and worldview. So that's where we need to start, with educating the leaders in our church communities. But there are also churches that have, as I said previously, they have active ministries. And it might be for support groups that they support, or bereavement ministry, or support groups for a multitude of different things. But most priests aren't educated in diagnosis or in things like major depressive disorder. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Depression is one of the most common mental disorders in the United States. Major depressive disorder is the leading cause of disability for people ages 15 to 43, according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. Millions of people in the US cope with depression, a chronic and treatable condition. Overall, more than 16 million adults in the US suffer from major depressive disorder in every given year, as reported by the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. So what does a major depressive disorder diagnosis look like? When an individual has a persistently low or depressed mood, anhedonia, which is a decreased interest in pleasurable activity, feelings of guilt or worthlessness, lack of energy, poor concentration, appetite changes, psychomotor retardation or agitation, sleep disturbances, and suicidal thoughts. So per the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, an individual must have 5 of the above mentioned symptoms, of which one must be a depressive mood or anhedonia causing social or occupational impairment to be diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And who gets major depressive disorder? So doing a little research on that, the mean onset of age is about 40 years. But recent surveys have shown that trends are increasingly skewing down to the younger population due to the use of alcohol and other drugs of abuse. Major depressive disorder is more common in people without close interpersonal relationships and who are divorced or separated or widowed. There's no difference in the prevalence of major depressive disorder found among races and socioeconomic status. Individuals with major depressive disorder also have comorbid disorders, such as substance use disorders, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, and obsessive compulsive disorder. In older adults, depression is prevalent among those with comorbid medical illnesses. So there's actually now a specialization, if you haven't heard of it before, called geropsychology for helping older persons who have a mental health diagnosis and are dealing with a whole host of other medical conditions, including dementia. So that's really an expanding area in mental health at this time, unfortunately, as the population ages. So what are some coping strategies? Start and stay active. Overwhelming tiredness and a lack of motivation are 2 key depressive symptoms that prevent us from enjoying our favorite activity. But choosing to exercise, though may be difficult at first, is more beneficial for our mental health than simply remaining stagnant. Start small. 10 minutes of exercise can elevate your mood. Increase increments gradually. Once you've begun to enjoy your workout, stick with it. And it doesn't have to be a workout. Take a walk around the block. But if you do it every day, it starts you feeling refreshed, and keep it up. Another coping strategy is to re-embrace your religion or spirituality. Believing in something is the glue that holds us together and can give us the power to move forward during challenging times. Choosing to believe in something, no matter what it is, if nothing else, believe you can overcome depression. So how does religion play a part in coping with mental illness? Research reveals that people with mental illness mostly consider religion to be helpful in dealing with their own mental health problems. In a US survey, persons with long-term mental illnesses, 80% of the sample used religion to cope with their symptoms. The relevance of religion from the perspective of persons with mental illness is supported by studies showing that religious practice is associated with the improvement of psychiatric symptoms. And it doesn't have to be Catholicism. I know that's the religion that we're focusing on today, but it could be any faith community. Another coping strategy is to eat a balanced diet. And we hear it all the time, but healthy diet is a critical component of a depression-free lifestyle. As is often the case, eat what you love in moderation. learn a new recipe, experiment with spices, try an international dish, make dinner time exciting again for your body and mind. Take one step towards your goal. I know sometimes you feel like you can't hit your goals, but passive feeling like this makes us feel like we have no control over our lives. A mind that says I can fires up and pushes us forward, while a mind that says I can't gives up on itself before it even tries. What is one thing you can do today to achieve your goals? Take small steps, and eventually those steps add up. Once they do, you'll find you're closer to your goals than you think. And the last coping strategy is use multiple paths. Positive changes to one's life are never done in isolation. It takes a combination of choices sustained over a period of time that prove to be most effective. Since each individual's path to recover differs, packages of treatments and supportive service for mental health and substance use disorders should be tailored to fit each individual needs. Well, there are many ways to treat depression. Clients need personalized treatment that takes into their account their interests, values, religion, personality type, and everything that encompasses who they are. When clients are given a box of tools to choose from during bouts of depression, it increases the likelihood that one of those tools will work for them. For many people with behavioral health conditions, mental illness or addiction, the most effective approach often involves a combination of modalities, including counseling, medication, supportive services such as case management, and family education, as well as mutual support groups, including 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Dual Diagnosis Anonymous, can also play an important role in promoting health and recovery. And what are the roles of spiritual leaders? So in many religions, spiritual leaders serve as advisors in non-religious matters. Priests are often contacted for mental health programs. And compared to psychiatrists and psychologists, priests sometimes are perceived as more capable of warmth, caring, professionalism, and listening skills. It should also be mentioned that some persons with mental illness avoid seeking treatments from physicians and therapists and prefer to seek the help of priests instead. Sometimes this is because persons with mental illness are not trusting of medical systems or medication, or are fearful of them. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between pastoral care, which is what you're getting from your priest or your clergy, and counseling. So pastoral care is defined as services that are performed by a pastor. That's pretty much the long and short of that. A pastor is viewed as a shepherd who guides the people through all walks of life. And this implies a form of religious or spiritual counseling that assists people to get them through difficult times. The care of a pastor is not limited to the provision of sermons, but extends to many areas. And during seminary training, pastors are often exposed to counseling that assists them in helping people. But there is a difference, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So what's the difference between pastoral counseling? So pastoral care refers to the services that are performed by a pastor. It has its roots in religion, and pastors do not often gain professional training, although some exposure to counseling is gained in the seminary. Counseling is defined as the process by which a counselor guides the counselee for him or her to find solutions to a problem that he or she is facing. Counseling has its roots in counseling psychology, a scientific discipline, and counselors gain professional training that equip them to handle all types of difficult situations and dilemmas. So that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So counselors are licensed by the state board to provide counseling services and can be reimbursed by Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurances, based on our degree of licensure. So that's where the difference comes in between pastoral care provided by a pastor and what a licensed social worker or a licensed professional counselor or a marriage and family therapist can provide. They're licensed by the state. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Catholic Charities and what Catholic Charities is. So Catholic Charities is an arm of the Catholic Church, and we're a larger part of a system of agencies across the United States. Not every Catholic Charities agency provides behavioral health services, but almost 70% of them provide some type of treatment and support to individuals and families suffering from mental health or substance abuse issues. And services range from counseling to medication management to residential treatment, trauma-informed care, and many programs have specialized cultural component services for immigrants and refugees. So in Cleveland, we have a couple of specialized programs. We provide a Hispanic services program where we do both mental health and substance abuse treatment. And then in our migration and refugee services program, we have a program for victims of torture. So those are a couple of things that we specialize out of the Catholic Diocese office. And Catholic Charities USA seeks to meet the needs of the whole person and of the family unit, and is focusing its energies on developing integrated physical health and behavioral health services, and is partnering with other providers to help clients establish a holistic approach to meet all of their needs. So then I wanted to talk a little bit about Catholic Charities Diocese of Cleveland. So our mission is under the leadership of the Bishop of Cleveland and inspired by the gospel. Catholic Charities continues the mission of Jesus by responding to those in need through an integrated system of quality services designed to respect the dignity of every person and build a just and compassionate society. So Catholic Charities Diocese of Cleveland is just a little bigger than that. We pretty much serve most of northeastern Ohio. So we are in Ashland, Cuyahoga, Geauga, Lake, Lorain, Medina, Summit, and Wayne counties. So we are the human services arm of the Catholic Church here for the Diocese of Cleveland. We're one of, and a lot of people know this, we are one of the largest diocesan systems of social service in the United States. Catholic Charities Diocese of Cleveland has 185 different parishes. So that's a lot of different priests that we're working with. We also have a really large continuum of programs and services. So every year, Catholic Charities Diocese of Cleveland, that's the CCDOCLE, delivers more than 150 services at 60 different locations to over 425,000 individuals. We have about 800 employees, about 1,100 volunteers, and we've been in the business for 110 years. We're celebrating that this year. So we do family preservation and advocacy. We have family centers, senior programs, early learning programs, parenting education, both home visiting and groups, disability services, migration and refugee services, advocacy and social action, the Office for Human Life, youth athletics, which you might be aware of, which is CYO, and we also have employment and training. We have emergency assistance services. So we have a Catholic hunger and shelter network. So a lot of the meals and pantries that are run out of the parishes are funded through Catholic Charities, the food and pantry programs. We have a men's overnight shelter and coordinated entry services in Lorain County. We provide rent and utility assistance, miscellaneous emergency assistance. And in the city of Cleveland, we have a temporary safe house for women. We also have, and we're talking about today, behavioral health programs. So we do outpatient counseling. We do intensive outpatient services, IOP, dual diagnosis treatment, wraparound service coordination, residential treatment programs, and then we deal with specialized populations. We have a first schizophrenia program. We do intensive home-based services. And I lost track of where I am in my notes, so excuse me for 1 second. Peer support, youth services, early childhood mental health, school-based treatment, MAT, employment services, and like I said before, we have specialized Hispanic services. So who do you contact? At CCDOCLE, you can call our central intake number. We have a number that gets picked up between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's 1-800-860-7373. That's our central intake. And you can ask about any service. It doesn't have to be behavioral health related. If you need any of those other services I mentioned, they'll get you through the door for that. And then our website is there, which is www.ccdocle.org. And if you want to share this information for any family or friends that you have outside of the Diocese of Cleveland, you can always reach out to Catholic Charities USA. The number is there at 703-549-1390, or you can write to info@catholiccharitiesusa.org. And like I said, there is a Catholic Charities in every diocese, in every state across the country. So if you've got friends or family out there who are looking for some help, please reach out to Catholic Charities USA. And who am I? I'm Joan Hinkleman. I'm the Senior Director of Family Services, and this is how you get a hold of me if you need me. Our main offices are on Detroit Avenue in Cleveland. That's my office number, and my email, jmhinkleman@ccdocle.org. And again, our website is www.ccdocle.org. And that's all I have for you today. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Joan. At this time, if anyone has a question, please put it in the chat, and I will read it aloud to Joan for you. So at this time, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. I actually, just based on your presentation, one question I wanted to ask, just if you could shed a little bit more light on, was specialized programs that Catholic Charities offers. Namely, I know there was a program for schizophrenia, was also Hispanic services. Can you shed just a little bit more light on some of those programs?
Sure. So First Schizophrenia is a program that's funded by Neomed, and they have, I can't remember the exact number throughout the state, but it's for people between the ages, I'm going to say, of 15 and 40 who have had their first psychiatric break. We get them into treatment immediately. We wrap them in services. So they're assigned a counselor, they're assigned a psychiatrist, they're assigned a case manager. And if they're interested, they're also assigned a vocational counselor for employment and training. So we wrap them in services. It's their first psychotic break. We're working with them. We're working with the family, and we're trying to make sure that everything goes as it needs to go for them so they can lead a hopefully less problem-filled diagnosis, because they've found, Neomed's done the research, if we can get people during that first psychotic break and work with them immediately, the outcomes are much better.
Wow, that's amazing. Next question comes from the audience. One question I just wanted to address. There was a question if the presentation slides will be forwarded. They won't be forwarded, but this program is being recorded, and we will be uploading it to our NAMI Greater Cleveland YouTube channel, which you'll be getting that information post-event. But the next question is, I am a psych nurse practitioner in Canton. Is there anything that I could help with?
Well, in Canton, I'm going to say that's the Diocese of Youngstown, and Julie could, our person who's going to be on the panel with us after this, can probably tell you a little bit more about that. So is that Stark County? Yeah, Canton, Stark County. But yes, there's always things we can do.
The next question, what kind of wraparound services are offered from Catholic Charities?
Right. So we talked a little bit about with the first schizophrenic program. So we've actually recently moved employment and training under our treatment, prevention, and recovery programs, because that's one of our outcomes. We want to wrap everybody who's coming in for treatment to have access to a vocational counselor. There are also case managers. We have a specific program for youth who are what we call multi-system involved. So they may be involved with juvenile court, the family might be involved with child protective services, and we wrap those families, and they really call it, that's what they call it wrap, in services to try and make sure that youth stays out of juvenile court and we can stop any removal of that child from the family.
Another follow-up, what are the eligibility criteria for getting a case manager from Catholic Charities?
Well, it depends on what program that you get entered into. Case managers usually work with our substance use dependency programs, and specifically for schizophrenia and our youth programs. Outpatient mental health, not so much, unless maybe you're working with one of our psychiatrists. And I think I'm going to say that varies on a case-by-case basis.
Great. One other question I wanted to ask, and I think you may have already addressed this in the presentation. As far as someone seeking out services from Catholic Charities, do they have to be affiliated with the Catholic Church?
They do not, absolutely not. So as I said, when I talked a little bit about the difference between pastoral care and counseling, we are licensed counselors. So we're licensed by if I can remember the acronym, but we're licensed by the Marriage and Family, the Social Work Counselor Marriage and Family Therapy Board of the state of Ohio. And I'm not sure if that's in the right order or not, because I always mess that up. So we're all licensed counselors. And we, like I said, we bill for our services. So Medicaid, and I saw it pop up in there. So is it Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance? We accept everyone. And because we are the Catholic Church, we also do have a sliding fee scale. So if we have someone come to us and say they just can't pay, we are not going to turn them away. But we do exhaust every avenue we can. So if we get somebody who come in who might be Medicaid eligible, we're also going to assist them with getting Medicaid as well. And I didn't catch some of the other chats. So if you could take a look at those, Archie.
Sure. One question was, what about the MRDD population with mental health disorders? Are there resources available?
Yes. So we actually have a whole department, which doesn't fall under my department. We have a disability services department. So if you wanted to call the intake line, we definitely work with people with MRDD, most definitely.
Great. And the final question, and I'm not sure whether or not you answer this, is there a cost for the services to the client?
Right. So like I said, we do accept almost all insurances. Call Central and take about that, but definitely Medicare, Medicaid. And like I said, if you have no insurance, we'll work with you to try and get you on Medicaid if you're eligible. But if you have no means of paying for us, we'll make sure you get some care.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Joan, for such an informative presentation. I hope that I know our audience definitely gained something from what you presented, and we will be getting into more in-depth discussion with our second guest, Julie Sutton, who is part of the Stephen Ministry of a parish down in Canton. At this time, we're going to take a brief intermission so everyone can get up, stretch, stop at the restroom if you need to, and we will be starting. It is now 7:38. We will be coming back in 3 minutes, so a little after 7:40. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back, everyone. And we are back. We are back for our panel discussion. Tonight's event from Intercession to In Session, Mental Health in the Catholic Church. Again, my name is Archie Green, Support and Education Coordinator at NAMI Greater Cleveland. We just witnessed a informative presentation from Joan Hinkleman of Catholic Charities. And at this time, we are going to have our special panel discussion on this subject matter. First, what I'd like to welcome back to the stage is our keynote representing Catholic Charities, Ms. Joan Hinkleman. And I'd like to introduce our second guest speaker of the evening. Julie Sutton, MA, is the Director of Faith Formation of St. Michael the Archangel Parish in Canton, Ohio. She has a BS in Physical Therapy from Marquette University and an MA in Theology Pastoral Ministry track from Walsh University. She's also a trained Stephen Minister, Stephen Leader through Stephen Ministries, an educational organization designed to equip congregation members to provide one-on-one Christian care to people who are hurting. This time, I'm going to bring Julie Sutton to the stage.
Hello.
Let me see. Julie, are you in the spotlight as well?
I don't see me.
Okay, give me 1 second here. Here we go. All right, there we go. I think what it is you have to have your video on. That's the main reason why.
Well, that would help, I think.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out this this Zoom thing that the pandemic has blessed us with, right? I want to dive right in. In the first question, I'd like to direct to you, Julie. And when I was putting together this event, and I think I shared with you today, I just was kind of searching online at the intersections of mental health and the Catholic Church. And it was actually a coworker of mine who has a background in religious studies who had informed me of the Stephen Ministry. And this was my first time hearing of it. Can you kind of break down for our audience what the Stephen Ministry is and how someone can become a Stephen minister?
I sure can. So Stephen Ministry was started in 1975 by a Protestant pastor who was also a clinical psychologist, who realized that as a pastor, even one who was trained in mental health care, he did not have the time to take care of the people who needed to be taken care of. And that there were an awful lot of people in his congregation and in everybody's congregation who could use some more social and emotional and spiritual support, but didn't need professional mental health care necessarily. So it's a training program for volunteers. It's 50 hours of training about active listening, about how to be confidential, about red flags and when to call and ask for help, what to do in emergencies, and various skills, caring skills. And Stephen leaders can train them. And then we have supervision also. So if a Stephen minister is matched up with a care receiver who could be somebody who's having a hard time in life for any reason. It could be bereavement, it could be loss of a job, it could be your last kid goes to college and the empty nest is overwhelming you, or really anything that's a bump in the road that you're not getting over well. So we will journey with that person, set them up one-on-one with a lay volunteer who can spend time with them, listening carefully, praying and reading the Bible and that kind of thing, if that's helpful to the person. But mostly it's about being somebody who has unconditional positive regard for that person and gives them a confidential, safe space to say whatever they need to say, especially when their family is tired of hearing it over and over. And we have supervision. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Julie, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the other piece of it is that we have supervision groups where the Stephen ministers themselves meet in small groups to talk about their caring relationships and help make sure that everybody's maintaining healthy boundaries and nobody's going down a rabbit hole that they shouldn't go down by providing too much care or getting over involved or controlling. So
Would you say to, I guess, a certain degree that someone, a lay member who wanted to visit with a Stephen minister, it kind of serves as somewhat an intervention before going to a therapist? Would you say that, or going to mental health services?
it could be. It could be that I screen them first. A Stephen leader will screen them first to make sure there's no obvious signs of real deep problems. This is not for somebody who's coming apart at the seams. So I have told people, I'm not comfortable. I think you need to call your doctor and make sure that medically everything's okay. Sometimes we'll work in concert at the same time as a mental health professional, but the mental health professional is driving the ship. So with their permission, we can continue to meet with somebody. But if you don't, if they're trying to break somebody down to make them want to make changes in their lives, and then they go see the Stephen minister and they make them feel enough better that they don't make progress. So we always defer to the mental health professional, and we refer out as needed. And I have mental health professionals in our congregation with whom I can consult on a confidential basis with no names. But if somebody revealed to me one time they had a really serious diagnosis, that I could not send a volunteer to meet with somebody with the personality disorder. Even I knew that was a bad idea, but I confirmed with a couple of real mental health professionals, and was comfortable saying, I'm sorry, this is not the help place for you. So
basically, if someone was to come to a Stephen minister and admit, hey, I'm having issues with depression, or expressing about psychosis, in the event that happens, then you would refer them out to
yes,
a licensed professional.
Absolutely, yes.
So in a way, it's almost like a gateway to someone seeking out the services that, say, Catholic Charities would offer.
It could be. We would refer to Catholic Charities or to whomever was appropriate. It's not the most common thing. Most people are just having a rough time, and somebody with a mild depressive symptoms or grief that they just can't quite get over. It's more of an accompaniment ministry to help people get through that, just journeying with them. But it could, if they're not doing well, then yes, we will certainly. And if it's really bad, we'll call 911. Or, I have left the crisis center hotline on somebody's table, written on a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I was like,
and for those who don't know, the new number is 988. That went into effect in July, nationwide.
Yes.
So anyone that's suffering or having a mental episode, in place of 911 or even the old 1-800 number, you can now just dial 988 that launched in July. So obviously, part of the reason why we're here tonight is to break the stigma. It's part of NAMI's mission across all communities, across all faith beliefs. And stigma is very prevalent in the Catholic Church. We've kind of started to see a little bit more discussion, a little bit more discussion around mental health. Can both of you speak from the perspective of someone who is part of the Catholic Church and or affiliated with the Catholic diocese, why it's important for you as a representative to speak publicly about the importance of mental health?
Well, sure.
Go ahead, Julie, if you want to.
You guys,
yeah, I think especially in these last couple of years, people have talked a lot more about the need for mental health care. We had a rash of young kids committing suicide in Stark County just a few years ago. So I think people are pretty good at recognizing that there are problems and that mental health care is important. I find, though, that often people think mental health care is important for other people. but not for themselves. Oh, no, I don't need that. But, so I think that, and people are still afraid to admit to it themselves. They think it's a great thing, but they don't want to acknowledge their own problems.
And I will acknowledge too that there is a stigma with the Catholic Church. I know we have a history. It's there. And as I alluded to in my presentation, all these priests are human beings and they come with their own baggage, their own biases. So I think I'm going to say within the last maybe 20 years, we've seen a significant shift, probably since John Paul II. And that was a lot longer. I mean, John Paul II was the Pope for the longest time, but he had a good knowledge of mental health and the treatment of mental health. And I think he started doing more education within the church. Pope Francis has continued that. But we still have a lot of priests who are very old school, who are older, and it's a process. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, I think it's problematic when Catholic leaders tell people that their anxiety is because they don't trust God enough. You talked about the protective nature of religious practice and spiritual practices, and that's great if it helps you. But if you think that God is angry at you and that's why you're suffering and that's why things are bad, then religion can be a destructive force as well. So we have to be aware of that.
And that's why I said too, sometimes, and we always say this about therapists, if you don't find the one therapist you like, try another one. Maybe it just wasn't a good fit. And sometimes that's religious communities. I'm here to, represent Catholic Charities and the Catholic faith, but that might just not be the faith community for you, or it might not be a right parish. So Diocese of Cleveland has 185 different parishes in 8 different counties. If you don't like, and it used to be, and this is a hard part too, it used to be you had to be in the parish you lived in. It's really not that way anymore. People they move and they stay with their home parish, or they try new parishes. And it's kind of the same way with pastors. If you don't find what you like, try a different one.
Amen.
Sure. So another question I wanted to ask you, Julie. This actually came up in our last program when we were speaking to members of the Black Church. The leaders of the Black Church saw an uptick in calls and, of course, officiating funerals during the beginning of the pandemic. Did you see more of an increase of people reaching out in your community for Stephen Ministry help during those tough times?
Really not that much. Our Stephen Ministry was just new. We had just trained our first class of ministers before the pandemic, and frankly, the Stephen ministers' lives, several of them were completely disrupted by the pandemic, by deaths in their families, by their own health diagnoses. We were pretty decimated by the end. And frankly, there were times when I didn't have the bandwidth to even get to Stephen Ministry. We were scrambling so hard trying to figure out how to do what we do when we couldn't do any of the things we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it could have been our moment to shine, and we just, in all honesty, really didn't that much. Our parish did a lot of outreach, a lot of phone calls. We called everybody who we didn't have emails for. We did a lot of good things, and some of my Stephen ministers did have phone relationships with people over that time, but it was, I don't know, it was unsettled and unsettling.
Sure. And I guess I would extend the same question to you, Joan. I mean, there have been reports that have come out just basically talking about, how limited some of our resources have been, especially with the increase in need for mental health services since the pandemic. Can you talk a little bit, shed a little light on that?
So Catholic Charities, thankfully, and as I said, we're one of the larger Catholic charities in the country. We were able to pivot really quickly to online treatment.
That's great.
So we did that pretty seamlessly and kept up our caseloads pretty well. What we're having a hard time with now, because we made it through the pandemic okay, it was that post-pandemic burnout by a lot of counselors. So
Yes.
we're building back up again, but in the last year, we've seen a wave of a lot of people leaving the profession, unfortunately. So that's been one of our challenges, is finding staff. But because we did pivot to online and we're still providing online, if we have somebody in Lorraine that needs services and one of our counselors in Lake County has an opening, we can pick that up and do it online. So it's not that, you know, although there are still people who want to do face-to-face, and we acknowledge that, and we're doing that. But we were able, like I said, to pivot pretty quickly. What we saw an increase of, unfortunately, and I'm sure you've heard this from some of the people you work with, is the need for our peer support staff, which work with people who are presenting in emergency rooms. We work very closely, particularly in Summit County with all the hospitals down there. So they'll call our peer support if we've got somebody who's coming in ODing. And we saw a lot of that during the pandemic. So there was, it seemed to us that there was a large increase in substance use or overdoses during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, you know, for all of us, it's been an adjustment. I mean, things are somewhat getting back to a new normal, we'll call it, you know, as numbers have started to finally go down and more people have been boosted, but now it's like you've got monkeypox and all these other things that we have to try our hardest to avoid. You know, both of you have spoken about the stigma and kind of the old school ways that leaders of the Catholic Church have engaged in terms of, you know, not really taking, you know, what we kind of consider a more practical approach to talking about mental health. Can you talk about maybe an example, if you have any, of a parish that has come forward expressing, you know, the importance of mental health, maybe even having a special mental health ministry, or, you know, referring more individuals to the Stephen ministry to get that type of support that individuals need? Do you have any examples that you can share with us?
So sure, a lot of our parishes host support groups. So, you know, AANA, probably before the pandemic, I'm sure there were some parishes that were hosting NAMI as well. We do have some parishes, and it's our larger parishes. So some of our smaller parishes are just kind of holding on, just like some of the smaller social service agencies. But some of our bigger parishes do have ministry arms. So they're doing the grief counseling, they're doing crisis support, they're doing, so one that pops out in my mind is in Chagrin Falls, and I can't remember the name of it. Our Lady of Angels, I think, is the name of it. They have a big ministry program there. The other thing that we're doing that I want to talk about, because I don't want to make it sound like all of our priests are living in the dark ages. So as we're getting new priests that come through the seminary, they've started a new program in, I'm going to say, the last 5 or 6 years, where they actually come and intern with us. So they can see, so they can see what's happening in residential treatment. So they can see what's happening in our EA programs, in our developmental disability programs. So they're getting more than just the book learning when it comes to counseling. They're actually seeing it and living it. And then they're doing some of that pastoral counseling, like in residential treatment and things like that, doing some of that one-on-one with people who are in our programs.
Wow, that's game changing.
Yeah, that's only been in the last 5 or 6 years. And I'll also be honest with you, the class sizes are small. So it's only like 4 or 5 priests at a time, but we got to start somewhere. So
Absolutely. Can you talk, can either of you kind of talk maybe some recommendations for, let's say, if a parish leader is watching and they're interested in introducing or talking about the importance of mental health for their congregation, are there any type of, you know, words of wisdom that you can offer to them? Obviously, from the NAMI perspective, you know, we offer various programs such as this, as well as mental health first aid, where we partner with various congregations to teach individuals the basics of mental health. But are there any other ways that leaders of congregations can begin to help break the stigma for their community?
Well, you have to welcome people who are struggling.
I was just gonna say that.
And you've gotta make sure that it's you are communicating that as many times in as many ways as you can, that we want to help our people who are struggling, and if we can't help you, we'll help you find what you need. And that's not just for mental health, but for everything. I think that people who don't come to church because they can't sit down the whole time because they have back pain, or it's and they feel like it will be disruptive if they stand up, or if they bring their kids and they yell, or if they have somebody who just yells out randomly for whatever reason. And we need to do a better job of meeting people with every kind of disability where they are, and recognizing their gifts and what a gift they are to our communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my next question is for you specifically, Julie. Can you just kind of, again, touch a little bit on the work a Stephen minister does? Let's say, for example, someone is, maybe not expressing that they're depressed, but they're feeling very low. They're
Mhm.
starting to isolate themselves from other individuals. They feel that there's nothing they can do to kind of get them out of this funk. Is it part of, and I guess express what you can, is it part of the practice of Stephen ministers to use biblical references or stories to kind of help walk them through that? Or is it totally different?
Well, it can be. We call it our spiritual toolkit.
Love that. Love that.
So yeah, some people want to pray, and I had a woman. She would just hold my hands, and she would just say, "Oh, I think my life is really effed up." And she said, "Is that okay to say?" I was like, you can say anything to God, right? So sometimes it's a lot about praying. Sometimes people want spiritual reading or scripture. Some people want to pray with the Psalms are often useful because there's a psalm for every occasion and every emotion.
Mhm.
But it's all of that is only if it's comfortable for the care receiver. You don't walk in with your Bible and start beating somebody over the head with it, because it really needs to be directed by them. We have a lot of teachings in our church about suffering and redemption and the redemptive nature of suffering, and how good your suffering is, and you should rejoice in your suffering. And frankly, when people are in it, I don't find that very helpful at all.
Sure.
I think a much better Bible verse is it John 11:35? Jesus wept.
Yeah.
Knowing that we have a God who suffered, who came to earth, who
Mhm.
really knows what this is like, and who cries with us when we're crying. I think
Yes.
that I think that's more helpful generally,
Sure.
and it's not something that's been um, a mainstream way of thinking about suffering in our church, but it's definitely a big part of our tradition too. So
Sure.
um,
Sure.
yeah,
So one question that we did have from the audience, Julie, is Stephen minister communication privilege? Is it private,
absolutely.
confidential?
It's confidential unless you're concerned that a vulnerable adult or a child is being abused, or that somebody is a danger to themselves or other people. So if they say they're going to kill somebody, or whatever, we would call the police, clearly. Or if they're suicidal. And that's part of our training, is to ask people straight out. And I know I took the mental health first aid too, which was a really good training. I did that through the Diocese of Youngstown. They offered it for free to I don't know who all, but I know a lot of us took it. And I think that knowing that it's better to just ask somebody straight up than try and, you're not planting ideas in anybody's head. If they're having suicidal thoughts, most of the time they'll tell you. So
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. One final question that I had, Joan.
Mhm.
One of the things that you spoke on, I didn't get a chance to ask before in your presentation, was a new form of mental health services for the elderly. I think it was geriatric psychology.
Geropsych.
Geropsychology.
Neuropsych. Can you
Yeah,
kind of
it's
define and
really-
break that down?
Yeah, so really it is what it says it is. So it is psychology for the geriatric. And, you know, we are an aging population and we've got a lot of people who have major mental disorders who are aging too. So we're
Sure.
talking, and my husband's actually director of nursing in a nursing home. So we're getting very old schizophrenic patients. We're getting very old, you know, people who have been on mental health medication for a very long time. And now on top of that, they're getting dementia and Alzheimer's. So
Wow.
these are very difficult seniors to work with. Generally, they end up, unfortunately, in locked units because they wander or they're combative. So it's really an issue. But as seniors are aging and they're dealing with all of their health issues and they're dealing with their mental health issues too.
Sure.
And as I said in my presentation, we're seeing a rise in major depressive order among seniors just because of the social isolation because of the pandemic. I mean, we're thinking about everybody else who was isolated. The seniors were horribly isolated during the pandemic. It was a really big problem. We wanted to keep everybody safe, but we weren't providing them any socialization.
Sure.
So yeah, geropsych is becoming a really big need. Yeah.
I
And
can only.
chemically, the medications don't work the same in that population, some of them. So
Mhm.
there are extra concerns. And with all their other health problems and other medications, it gets pretty
Mhm.
complicated.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. Well, we have one other question from the audience. I think this one was directed at me. What type of services do we offer? So I've touched base a little bit on a few of the things that NAMI Greater Cleveland offers. We offer peer support groups. That is for individuals living with mental health, mental illness. Those peer support groups, we have one group that NAMI GC hosts every Thursday from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. That is via Zoom. You can register for that at our website, namigreatercleveland.org. We also have family support group, which is for family members living with an individual with mental illness. Those meet on Monday evenings from, I believe it's 6:30 to 8 p.m. And we also have a support group specifically for African Americans living with mental illness called Lean on Me, which meets virtually and in person at the Nora Center on East 55th every third Wednesday of the month. We also have educational programs, peer-to-peer, which is for individuals looking to learn about their mental illness or other general mental illnesses. I believe we just wrapped up our latest peer-to-peer course. We also have family to family, which is for family members living with individuals with mental illness looking to learn more about that as well. And we also facilitate, as we've talked about in this program, mental health first aid, which I personally recommend that every single person that is either watching this program or living with or not living with mental illness should go through that course. It is a basic essential course, an 8-hour course at that, where you learn about the various types of mental illness that there are, and as well as how to approach someone who is having a mental health episode without being discriminatory, without being offensive, and just understanding. And in all honesty, in some cases, it can mean the difference between life and death. If you understand what your friend or your family member or yourself may be going through. And so that is another thing that we offer to the community. So if you're a member of a parish, a church, and you'd like to bring mental health first aid to your congregation, you can contact me. I will be emailing everyone after this event. So you can send me an email directly and I'll connect you with our facilitator to bring that program to your congregation. Were there any other questions? The chat is open. We'll take any other questions from the audience. And in the meantime, was there anything else that either of you wanted to share just words of hope, for anyone that may be watching and is kind of, living in the stigma, is a little afraid to even approach a Stephen minister or to go to Catholic Charities. Is there anything that you'd like to offer to them?
Well, our tagline for Catholic Charities is, it just went right out of my head, but the last part is providing hope and serving all. So I want to make sure that everybody feels a little bit of hope in their life, and there's always, there's always something, there's always going to be a tomorrow. So please do that and know that we do serve everyone. You do not have to be a Catholic to come to Catholic Charities. And feel free to call our central intake or hop on our website and connect with us. And I know sometimes it's hard to pick up the phone, so send us an email. We'll answer you.
Julie?
Well, and all I can say is that every person is a beloved child of God. And all who live in love, live in God, and the grace is everywhere. Just try and find it and hang on to it.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think that will do it for our program tonight. We kind of ended a little bit early with some time to spare. So I want to again thank our guests, our keynote, Ms. Joan Hinkleman of Catholic Charities, and our Stephen minister, Julie Sutton of St. Michael the Archangel in Canton. Thank you both so much for taking the time out to help us at NAMI Greater Cleveland to break the stigma. Again, to learn more about NAMI Greater Cleveland and the services that we provide, visit our website at namigreatercleveland.org. You can also call our helpline, which I am putting in the chat right now as we speak, 877-7776. That's a 216 area code. And if you or someone that you know is experiencing a mental health episode, you can now also dial 988. And it looks like I also got a chat that there is a NAMI support group at the St. Joe's Parish in Strongsville. So if there are any Strongsville viewers here, thank you for that. You can also you look up that information at the NAMI Strongsville group as well. So thank you again to my guests. Thank you to our audience members for viewing this program. We will be posting this on the NAMI Greater Cleveland YouTube channel. And I will be sending out a brief post-event survey to let us know how we did, and so we can continue this great faith-based initiative. Thank you all. God bless and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye.